Welcome to the show, Adam. For those of you listening, Adam Boyd is a sales leader. He does sales training. He's a father, a husband, and also played his fair share of football back in the day and coached.
Long time ago. Yeah.
Stoked to have you on to talk about sales and marketing, both professional growth and how people can personally get better at it. Adam, what first and foremost is it's preseason for football. What's the outlook like for whatever team you're into, presumably somewhere in Texas?
Well, if you look behind me, Ross, that is orange, you see, but it is not burnt orange in Texas. That is Tennessee orange, Pantone 151, Knoxville, Tennessee. I bleed orange and white, the real orange and white. Tennessee had a university before Texas was even a country or a state, and 9 new starters on offense. I've got about 6 returning starters on defense, pretty deep on the D line because they rotate about 13 dudes up there. They're going to be strong. They'll be really solid defensively. The question mark is new offensive line. I think 4 new starters on the offensive line, all new receivers, new running back, new quarterback. If we win 9 games, I'm really, really happy, especially in the SEC. What about you? Who's your team?
So first of all, impressive knowledge of the Vols. I spent my fair share in UT back in the day, and the culture there is awesome to be a fan.
Yeah.
I have to say, number one, I'm more of a fan of college ball than pro. I feel like it's just from a fan experience.
Yeah.
And then players have, I think, higher stakes versus if you're a franchise player, you've got a contract, you're making so much money. But Penn State would be the local team.
Number 2 in the nation in the AP poll. Look at that.
We'll see. We'll see if the Michigan-Ohio State curse, remains.
Well, you got Jim Knowles as your defensive coordinator, and that guy has worked wonders. And we're going to see if Ryan Day is as good as he thinks he is, or as we think he is. I mean, because Chip Kelly, that guy, I don't know what he was doing. I think he was involved with some sorcery, the way he schemed him up last year. I mean, they were like a buzzsaw going to the playoffs. And Jim Knowles, that guy had a solid defense at Oklahoma State, which just doesn't happen. So I think that's brilliant on James Franklin's part. I don't know who he has calling plays on offense, though.
That's the biggest question mark as a fan.
Yeah.
We're always the bridesmaid, never the bride, as a fan of Penn State.
Under Joe Pa, every 4 years up until the mid-90s, Penn State either won a national championship or had an undefeated season under Paterno. Every 4 years. So if you were a class coming through, and this was up into the early 90s, that was just like clockwork. It was going to happen.
Yeah. If you were a linebacker in high school, you wanted to go to linebacker U. That's when ball was different then. So you played football.
I played high school. I went to a Division III school to play, and I got hurt, and then I went into coaching.
Yep. I have a similar but different. I played football up until high school. So I stopped growing, and that was just a great opportunity to focus on wrestling. But similar to you,
wrestling is the toughest sport.
Wrestling is a tough sport, especially in Pennsylvania. But you played football in Texas, right?
No, Tennessee.
Okay.
I came to Texas because I read Friday Night Lights by H.G. Bissinger when I was in high school, and I didn't realize it was a cautionary tale. I just thought 20,000 people at a high school game, I have to go be in Texas and coach. So I came here right after undergrad.
Very cool. I really believe that it's not a one-to-one correlation between star athlete players and awesome coaches. I don't think that that's a necessary thing.
No.
I've seen it time and time again. So I've always thought myself as better at being a coach for just love of the game or knowledge, or more of a mental player than sometimes physical. So I'm going to segue this into sales and marketing.
Sure.
What similarities do you see between sales leadership management training versus being a producer that exists between playing football and being a football coach?
Okay. This is a really good one. And I've not had it asked like this. So for anyone listening, I'm going to try not to get lost in the weeds. Someone once said to me that your A students become your doctors and lawyers, your B students become your best teachers and coaches, and your C students become CEOs because they're too busy having a good time. There's something about someone who wants to do really well but has to struggle, the level of learning they go through. And this is a too small sample size, but if we think about the best coach statistically in the history of the NFL, Belichick, he was a Division III football player who played center, and he just loved to learn. If you think about his right-hand man, a guy named Ernie Adams, most people don't know about. Ernie was similar. Ernie actually didn't even play. They were roommates, I think, at Andover. Now, if I go back to, you think about Saban, Saban played college, but Saban played at Kent State. He wasn't this amazing guy. And if we were to go through and we were looking at all of your primary head coaches in college football, you're not going to name many who are stars. Like, and I know this is painful for you, but like we think about Michigan under Harbaugh. Harbaugh was a great college quarterback, but like you didn't hear Ryan Day's name in college. Brent Venables was like this skinny walk-on at K-State. So I think this translates to sales because what happens, and you probably see this on the marketing side, someone's a really good salesperson. They close big deals. They are unconsciously competent. And we say, all right, we're going to tap you. You're in charge of everybody now because you're the most competent. And actually, it's a problem because you just burdened your best producer with administrative and coaching responsibilities they may not be good at. I have routinely seen very, very average salespeople make great managers because they care about their people. They ask great questions, they're prepared, they're organized, and they have an understanding of how to develop others, even if they're not great at it. So there's some correlation to someone struggling to be a really good coach and then something similar in sales. Quickly, I wrestled in high school for a while, and then I got tired of getting injured and cutting weight. We had a pretty good coach, and he was a JV wrestler in high school up until our senior year, I think. I mean, back when where we grew up, Tennessee wrestling is not going to compare to places like Pennsylvania or Nebraska or Iowa. But you know, he was on a team that ended up winning state championships, and so he just wasn't going to crack that starting lineup. But he learned and he loved it, and he just thought about it all the time, and it made him a great teacher.
To that point, I have two quick stories. One, my younger brother just finished his first year of high school wrestling coaching. He's the head assistant.
Oh,
and
so cool. Where? In PA?
In South Carolina. So near
Interesting.
Pendleton or
Okay.
Clemson area. He's
Okay.
a professor at Clemson. And as a high school wrestler, he could have been great, but he had performance anxiety. So if the lights were on and everyone's watching, yeah, no shot. He actually pinned a guy who got third place at states, wrestled Division I when no one was watching in a tournament because there was no pressure.
Interesting.
And so he was essentially JV or a losing record. Goes off of his first year of coaching, and because he's been a teacher or a professor teacher, they had their best season in school history, state medalist. They might have had a state champion, and he was active with the guys all the time. And it's a totally different skill set, and it reinforces your point.
Yeah.
At the same token, I have a friend who wrestled with me in high school who's very talented at the high school level, goes on the Penn State's wrestling team, I think one of the greatest dynasties in modern sports. And under Coach Kale was the lowest win percentage starter for his first year. It's like 3-27. It was brutal. Wow. But then his senior year, he's 1 point away from All-American. He's like this close. Wow. So, but what I can say about Brian is he loved the game more than he liked winning. He loved the game more than he hated losing. He was just, not only was he a student of wrestling, he was I'm going to change my behavior based on the great examples around me and be malleable and willing to learn. And now he's been the number 2 man at several Division I wrestling teams, and he's with Oklahoma State.
Wow.
As the recruiter, because he's, from a culture standpoint, he understands the psychology so well. He just really helps to get recruiting class. So I totally agree with you from the standpoint that sometimes the greatest individual contributors don't make the greatest leaders, because at least in marketing, when your reward feedback loop is you did a great job versus we did a great job, totally different incentives.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And again, my experience and opinion is anecdotal, but you sometimes find more truth in anecdotes than you do cherry pick stats.
I feel like stats are one of those things where unless they're regularly maintained and kept up to date, so like a CRM or a pipeline, if I were to tell you, Adam, I've got $1 million in my pipeline, and you might say, great, like, how can I trust that's true?
Well, and then you have to unpack it, right? How many deals, average deal size, likelihood of close, stage. so often people will pick things and they don't ask the next 2 to 3 questions, which qualify and contextualize the statistic.
So my next question for you is, from coaching football to coaching sales, what was that transition and journey like? And I'm sure it didn't happen overnight.
So here's my story. I came to Texas to teach and coach, and I was 22 when I got here, and I thought, I'll go to law school, right? It's one of these things that, all those people go to college and like, I'm going to be a doctor until they run into organic chemistry and it kicks them out. And I was thinking, I'll go to law school because it seemed like the thing you were supposed to do if you had any interest in making money, business, politics, because of contracts and understanding law. And I took some practice LSATs and I was like, this is awful. I'm not going to get into a really good school. So I'm going to go do something else. And I ended up doing some nonprofit work, bartending, and doing some writing. And from there, I decided to go back to business school. And it was only one business school I looked at. I looked at the Acton School of Business in Texas, run by entrepreneurs. And I wasn't even looking at sales. I just didn't have a plan. And so I fell into sales because an adjunct teacher had come and talked to us about sales approaches and strategies. And I said, hey, can I intern for you? And that turned into a 9-year relationship where we were selling training. And he just said, hey, go pick up the phone and cold call. And that's how I got started. Along the way, I learned about selling, sales management, building teams, structure, strategy, and started putting a lot of that together. Interestingly enough, I had been a teacher and coach. So this was 2003, 2004, left, went to business school. And when I got into sales, I ended up coaching part-time at the high school level again. And so from 2008 to 2015, during the fall, I would work 40 hours a week and then I'd go coach 40 hours a week. So it was a ton of fun. It really was. I had, like, during the fall, I'd get to work really early. I'd punch out about 2:33, head to practice. We'd practice. I still sold plenty. It was great. So
Right. It's an efficiency of time. You are married with kids. And I always laugh when I think back at myself. And for those of you that aren't married with kids, I'm not judging you. This is anecdotal of my own life. I used to say, I'm so busy, I have no time to do this. But you just realize first things first, priorities matter, and your time is valuable.
I periodically travel for work. And the beauty of it is I can work until 9 o'clock at night without any guilt, right? Whereas now it's like, if I'm pushing past 6:30, I'm kind of like, I need to go check in. And I want to, I really do. It's like, it's really hard for me to be working, knowing my kids are at home and I can be with them. If I travel, it's a different story. I'm like, man, I could just jam on this for the next 5 days and not worry about it, right? As long as I work out, get some sleep and a little sunlight, I'm going to be all right. You probably have experienced the same thing.
It's funny. Before kids, I would if my wife, who does sales, she does auto sales. There's some times where she's in the middle of a deal. It's right before close. She'll stay there an extra hour and a half, 2 hours to get the deal done.
Late. And she works I bet she's got to work on weekends, doesn't she?
Oh yeah, every Saturday, busiest day for car sales.
Oh my gosh.
So when we were dating and early, living together before kids came in the picture, it wasn't uncommon for us both to be out of the house working 80 hours a week. And when we got to spend a lot of quality time when we weren't working together. Yeah. But now my solution to that is, I know from typically 8 to 5 every day. That's my time to work, home alone. And then from 5 till 8, 9 o'clock, spend it with family. And then from 9 until whenever, that's when you get the extra reps in. That's when that's when I get the project work done. It's not client work. Yeah. And I think for salespeople and athletes alike, my question for you is, how do you maintain the longevity, so like injury prevention or burnout prevention from sales, to keep your mindset fit, to keep your health able to support the sustained focus and effort? What are some tips you have? You said you work out and spend a lot of time with family.
I got to tell you, man, I was reading Morgan Housel's book, Same as Ever, and he makes this comment. He says, you can tell people what they want to hear and you can make a lot of money. You can tell people the truth and make a living. You can lie to people. And it was something along the lines of, and you'll make a lot of money fast and then you'll be broke. And so when I say this, probably I could build up this image that I have all these answers, and I don't. I try to make myself work out, and I try to lift 3 to 4 times a week, and I try to get something else in. I bought a cold plunge because my buddy Scott Grubb in Austin, Texas said it took care of his allergies and his sinuses. So I cold plunge a couple times a week. And I generally feel better when I do it. But look, I'm not up at 4 a.m. doing 2 hours of meditation and fire walking and all that. I get up, I sleep. I try to sleep a lot. I try to get at 6:30. But I've got kids now in the school they go to. My daughter, I had to get her up at 5:45 this morning because she had to go to practice because they practice before school. And then my son, he's practicing after school and he wants to work out. So he's kind of eating into my workout time in the morning. So it's going to be really challenging for me through the end of October. So I'm not the guy to talk to, but I eat, I pray, try to go to bed early. Sometimes I know that I need to check out mentally. So I'll watch Brooklyn Nine-Nine or Parks and Rec just to kind of do that. But I don't have all the answers. I try to walk 2 to 3 times a day. So if instead of being on a Zoom, like you and I were talking, I'd say, hey, can we do this on the phone? And I'll throw these in and go for a walk for 20 minutes. And that's one of the best ways for me to manage stress. And in terms of staying sharp on sales, the best thing that happens to me to stay sharp is it's probably the second best thing. The best thing is I'm just really dialed in and prepared. The second best thing is I run some bad sales calls, lose deals. And I'm like, dang, I know what I did. I need to check in and quit mailing it in. So what about you?
No, I love that answer. And it reminds me of a time when I asked my old wrestling coach from college, I said, Coach, how do you stay calm before competition? He goes, well, I don't sleep the night before. It's like, calm? You think I stay calm? He's like, no, he goes, I just feel whatever I'm feeling and do it anyway. And I think it goes back to what you were saying about, those who lie might make money, and then be broke later. He's just like, look, whatever. Rule number one of entrepreneurship: use what you got. If you're stressed out, use the stress. If you're tired, rest. If you're hyped up and then ride with it. And I think that's been the more the more reps I get, the more experience I get, the more it's like, look, someone else out there might, like, just because it works for somebody doesn't mean it'll work for me. Just because some people are great at saying every single day, this is your time block at every single moment. Like, I like to have a checklist and it says, get all these things done in the day, fit them in when you can. That's what works best for me, is just having a punch list of things that whenever I feel the energy or compelled to do it, I know how much time I got, I get them done and then go to sleep, and I'm pretty good at sleeping.
Well, you might want to put this in the show notes and get one of those affiliate links set up, because I'm plugging it again. But again, I just finished this book, Same as Ever by Morgan Housel. And one of the things he mentions is that, and I think we all know it's true, but when we look at others who claim that I love every aspect of my work and I'm really organized and I'm really structured, that's an image they're selling to us. And it typically comes through a curated lens like Instagram or even LinkedIn, where we try to tailor everything to sell ourselves. And the more realistic truth is that it's hard for a lot of people. They're dealing with a different set of issues. And what we really have to get good at is embracing discomfort in what sucks, whether it's not sleeping the night before a match or, you're stressed out because you're trying to get an RFP in before a deadline, or responsive RFP. So that's kind of how I see it.
What are some of the common themes or motifs that you take your unique approach to coaching or sales training, both on the gridiron and in the bullpen for sales? What are some of the tips or mindset beliefs, or maybe even questions that share some commonality?
Okay. That's a good question. So when I coached football, I was a big believer that you could be as complex as you wanted, but it didn't matter if the kids couldn't do it, the players. So you'll be watching a game on Saturday or Sunday this fall, and there'll be a big play. And sometimes the commentator will be like, well, there was a breakdown. This guy missed this. Because if you've got Nick Saban or Kirby Smart calling your defense, they can be really complex. But most people can't run a complex system well. So when I coached football, I sort of knew my limitations. And I said, hey, we want to be simple. Because if we're really simple, and it's hard to fall in love with simplicity, the kids can do it. And if it's simple enough, they don't have to think. Ruffin McNeil, when he was the defensive coordinator at Texas Tech, used to say, clear minds make for fast legs. But if a kid's thinking, hey, they just motioned, what's the check we go to now? And they have to think about that, they play slow. In sales, I believe a lot and simplicity. This isn't so much a mindset, but this is just sort of a philosophy. I think about, I work with companies, some of whom have a really complex solution, some of whom have tons of SKUs, some of whom need to be experts in things like the real estate market or what's going on in insurance, right? And that could be employee benefits, it could be property and casualty. Those things are complex enough. And so the selling piece needs to be as simple and as clear as possible. They don't need a 19-point checklist. They need 4 to 5 stages. They need 3 to 5 milestones per stage, and it needs to be very natural. So I really believe football sales, keep it simple. Doesn't mean it's not sophisticated, doesn't mean it's not challenging, but you want to be simple and run that system really well. When it comes to sales, and this is something when I train people, especially if they're in more complex relationship-based sales or they're in situations where this person needs to buy, they're going to buy from someone, and there's so many things that fall into that category. The thing that I speak to our clients about a lot is you need to have a mindset of we're going to get you eventually. So if you think about Notre Dame, before they walk out on the field, they all slap the sign that everybody knows says play like a champion today. They actually got it from Oklahoma. I'm sure people know that. But I tell organizations, I'm like, put a sign up above your desk that says, we're going to get you eventually. We're going to get you. So that when you're out there, even if you get blown off, you're like, just keep calling, build a relationship and get in there. So that's a mindset. The other thing I tell people is, hey, I'm sorry, I'm like blowing up. I should have put everything on. The other thing I tell people is it's just sales. Just relax. And if you can maintain a full pipeline through smart marketing that creates leads or through your own outbound efforts, you're going to have plenty of opportunities and you can relax. When I went to college to play football, one of the older guys told me in practice, they tried to play me a corner and I did not have the hips or the feet to be a corner. I could have been an okay outside, overhang safety. But he said, man, you're just trying too hard. Because he would watch me. He's like, you're just trying too hard. And I think sometimes at sales, we try too hard and we think too much. So if we can get people to stop thinking and just be there and have a conversation, we can have some success.
Yeah, the best plan or strategy is the one that you can reliably follow.
Yeah.
The best workout routine is the one that you can commit to for a long enough period of time. The best diet's the one you stick to.
Yeah.
Amen. I totally get that. And for me, one of the things that I've found time and time again is, you mentioned earlier, conscious competence versus unconscious competence. I, like you, tried really hard. Like was a lot of conscious effort to become competent in something, which didn't translate to performance like championship level success. Because like you said, the more and I love that quote you said, clear minds
make fast legs. Yeah.
Make fast legs.
It's not mine. I stole it. So you can use it though.
Right. Clear minds make fast legs. It's like for wrestling or for, any type of like combat sport, you don't really have any time to think. Once the whistle blows, thinking is done. Now it's just execute. And I like to coach the athletes and say, look, based on the things that you like to do, based on your physical stature, whether you're tall and lanky or short and stocky, like here's a plan for you. Like here's plan A.
Yeah.
And then I need you to have an answer or two. So like A, B, and C in different scenarios.
Yeah.
And you just do that, and you don't try and come up with something.
Right.
Like don't think. Do all your thinking in practice. So I totally agree with you from a coaching standpoint.
I remember we had this wrestler in high school, Demetrius Stevens. We called him Deke. And Deke was phenomenal on his feet. He could take anybody down. He wasn't great on the mat, but as he evolved as a wrestler, I remember you just don't have time to do something. And he had practiced hitting a standing switch when somebody had his leg. He had just worked on it repeatedly. And so he's in a match. He'd been working on this. And so somebody's got his leg they're holding his leg. He hits a standing switch right there. And it was because it was the thing. He didn't have to get creative. He didn't think, because a lot of times you don't have time to think. And the difference between, sales and wrestling is in sales, you're having a conversation. If you're thinking while they're talking, you're most likely going to miss the most important part of the conversation. You're going to miss the thing you need to hear. And it's not like a book where you can go back and reread it. I guess you could. Sometimes you can say, hey, can you say all that again? But if you blank out for 45 seconds, you miss the whole thing.
Yes. And to that point, I find with whether it's again, making the comparison with sports or with sales or even marketing, I had a coach that just said, hey, you know what the secret to getting better at wrestling is? It's like, what? He goes, take them down and try and pin them, and then don't let them do it to you. He goes, that's the secret. I was
Right.
like, what? I was like, is there anything else? He goes, nope. It's as simple as that. Yeah, I mean, it takes work and skill, but it's like, it's a straight, it's very
Yeah.
focused on the objective and then just, do it. And to your point, the straight line sales method is, it's like whatever the prospect says, whatnot. It's like, as a podcast host, salesperson, athlete, you got to try and get back to the line of scrimmage and then run the next play.
I could talk about this all day.
If it goes way off left field and you throw an incomplete pass or interception, guess what? You're going to get the ball back in your hands as long as there's time on the clock.
Well, here's a thought that keeps it really simple for people. And we talk to our clients about this. And if I'm selling, I'm trying to do the same thing. So for anyone listening, the number one question you have to get answered on a sales call is, why are we talking today? And there's the initial, we have a management training business where we train frontline leaders, and people will call and say, well, we're exploring some training and we're talking to various providers. Well, that's not why they're talking to me. There's something else. There's issues landing on HR's desk. There's conflict that's not being resolved. There's a gap in their ability to maintain quality standards with the team they've got. There's a reason, and that's what we have to find. And so anybody listening, the question they need to get answered is, why are you here today? I don't know how I'd adapt that to cars. I've never sold cars, but honestly, the concept for anybody in a B2B setting or higher end B2C, it's like, hey, why are we here? What are you trying to solve for? If you can get that answer, life becomes real easy.
One, philosophically sound. Two, I think of sales as to help decide, and marketing is to make known. Yeah. I think a good salesperson's job is to not always get the yes, but sometimes help them make a decision, yes or no, because some deals are better left not sold. For marketing, my thing is either, is this messaging or material worth your attention? If yes, great. Let me continue to either educate or inspire or to entertain you to keep your attention. Oh, and by the way, when you're off after you've interacted with this marketing piece and you run into a problem, you may think of what you've gotten back and then continually want to learn more. And I think that's been helpful for at least for me in communicating to marketers, where the goal of marketing campaign, everyone's like, yeah, we need more leads. That's number one thing I hear as an issue. But I'm curious to hear, is the number one thing people would say, we need more sales? And is that the right diagnosis? Okay. So
this is a much longer conversation that we should probably have over like cups of coffee, but you need more leads. Well, you and I both know, depending on the industry, you can pump up a bunch into paid ads, but if you don't have that dialed in, you're going to get the wrong leads and you're going to get a lot of garbage. And now, please hear this. You're a CMO. A lot of times when I've heard salespeople say the leads are bad, it's because they actually had to work and sell. It was somebody who was in the ICP, or they were 70% to an ICP, but they weren't perfect, or there was some resistance, or they had to work. Marketing did their job. You now have to take the baton and run. They weren't going to carry you across the finish line and somebody gives you a PO or a credit card. A lot of times you're better off. Was it Seth Godin who's like, I'd rather have 100 raving fans than an audience of 100,000 who was lukewarm. And depending on what you're trying to do, you're better off with a handful of like really good customers or prospects than a bunch that are a ton of work. And some of this deals with your average contract value, your sales cycle, what you're doing. But in services, and this is really important, the wrong customer can cost you a ton of time and money. I was on a sales call 2 weeks ago, and I get in and I was thinking to myself, I don't want to win this. And it's rare that I think that, but I thought, this is going to create a lot of problem for our trainers. This is going to create a lot of problems for me. And we're going to be trying to keep this person happy. And I don't think we can do it. And frankly, I don't think anybody could. But I just saw enough to say, this is a bad one. So even if we could sell it, we should. But marketing wouldn't have known it. They fit our profile. And so they did our job. It's our job at that point to say, so is more leads the problem? For a lot of sales organizations that are reliant on their own effort, yeah, they need more leads. You know what that's going to require? They have to prospect. And you can do all the things in the world, but if they don't pick up the phone and call, and the phones still work, these things actually, did you know this? They still make phone calls. That's my daughter you could see there. This is, you can call people and they still answer. So some people need to do a better job converting. And that's learning how to have a conversation.
Amen. I think the roundabout way for me to volley back is say, sometimes, yes, you need more at bats. You need more, touches of the ball. Sometimes you need to do a better job when you get the at bat.
Yes.
Sometimes you need to figure out, are these leads that we're going after, or this offer, or this way that we're presenting it, or this price point, there's so many criteria. My whole thing, the more experience I get, and you probably will laugh, and I hope
I'm not going to laugh. I've made a mistake.
When I very first started selling, I was like, who's going to pay me? Like, I'll help who's willing, has BANT, budget, authority, need, and I forget the T.
Timeline. Yeah.
Timeline, right? Great. But then the more I go down, it's like, all right, I want them to have this pain point, this time feature, this problem to solve. It gets more and more niche down where it's like, I don't need more leads. I just need to get in front of more people like this that I've reliably
very, very
made
specific.
Happy.
Yeah, absolutely. That's there's a lot of truth to that. Now, what will happen? You are a founder, so you're going to think a certain way. There are some salespeople who they create a lot of consternation because if it doesn't look perfect, they dismiss it rather than work through the process of finding out, can this work? And, I say, hey, look, if a duck can pull a truck, hook him up. So just because you expect a fireman to be the one to pull a truck, well, that duck can work. And, if they're going to pay us and they're the right fit and they want what we have, let's go.
Right. Yes. I think it goes back to how I approach coaching sports. And I think I love that experience for what I do for a living.
Yeah.
Look, what the strategy and the leadership that I have for each individual client or prospect, completely dependent on the prospect. We're still going to do wrestling.
Yeah.
Right. I'm still going to coach you how to do wrestling. You're still going to coach you how to do sales.
Yeah.
But like what we'd say and do and how that looks like needs to be fit, or else it's not.
Absolutely.
You're just selling a widget.
Yeah. No, it's good. That's really good.
So next question I have for you is, when you're, whether it's 30 years, 40 years, whatever the end of the day looks like, and you're like, hey, I've made my last sales training call. I'm ready to call it quits. When will you know that the game is over? And what do you hope, the metaphorical subjective scoreboard says, like, what kind of brand reputation do you want to leave behind with your career and why?
Gosh. Okay. This is good. This is a good question. And it's one I'm probably not prepared to answer. And before the show started, I was telling you that like sometimes I kind of go off the deep end. This could happen. Maybe you'll edit it. Obviously, we all want to make money. So you set that aside. And one of the things that happens that's probably most rewarding is I've been doing this now for 18 years. I'll run into people and they'll say, man, that thing we did made a big impact in my life. I like hearing that. The longer term game is, how do we start building an organization? So we have our sales training side, and I've got a team starting to build around that. My goal is eventually to step back and kind of build those folks up to run this. I'll keep selling, but people who are better at it, more passionate, it's more like in their sweet spot, I want to set them up. And then we've got a Trinity training and development where we deliver frontline training. I want to continue to grow that and build a team. So for me, the scoreboard is, we built a healthy organization that really impacted the lives of employees and customers. And for personally longer term beyond that, it's like, if there's an opportunity to do something with my kids and bring them into business, and this becomes a springboard to other fun collaborations that keeps our family together and starts to weave generations together, then I've done a good job, I think. Even if they don't want to, it still provides for the family. I'm going to look back. I'm really going to look back and say this career was successful if it allowed me to spend a lot of time with my wife and kids, serve them well, and along the way, I served customers really well. So I want the organization to thrive. I want our team to grow and bring people in and to make a big difference in their lives. Ultimately, I'm looking like, how does this long-term impact our family?
Yeah. I mean, some people have different answers, whether that's a revenue goal, whether that's I want to be able to golf every day, and that's fine. But I find that the process of the question really goes towards like, are you trying to make the most significant impact that you can in the position you're in to those around you? Because like you said, with all the way back to the coaching, it's like, a great sales leader and a great coach, they're judged based on how well they've developed their athletes.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, my high school football coach, my position coach, he wasn't the coordinator, the head coach. I named my firstborn for him. He was a really good coach. He was a position coach. We actually, the oldest and I took a 10-day trip with this guy to Italy this year. And he's Italian American, so he showed us around. It was phenomenal. And you think about it, his legacy, he won one state championship, but his legacy is now measured in relationships and these people who've named kids after him and call him when life is falling apart. And you think about that, like from my value set, that is much more enduring. It's more eternal. It impacts more people than hoisting trophies.
Amen. I had a conversation with a basketball coach out of the Washington, D.C.-esque area, Maryland side. And I asked him a similar question, and he told me a story of how, and I forget the gentleman's name, but he's the host of SportsCenter. You should probably remember that guy.
Okay. Was it, oh gosh, so many of those guys, Stuart Scott Van Pelt, there was
Scott Van Pelt.
Yeah.
He played ball for him in high school.
Oh, wow.
And he told me a story. He's like, look, Scott was like an okay athlete. You know, this coach has won several state championships as a team. It's like he wasn't on those teams. He wasn't the star. He wasn't never all conference. But then, you know, he told me his development. And then one episode, Scott called him out and said, look, I'm here because of this coach here. He's like on national TV, got the recording, and he just got really overwhelmed and emotional. He goes, my job is to identify what's this person's potential and help them to reach it. You know, if our potential is a state championship team, then my job's to win it. If our potential is to get to 500, but have a bunch of kids stay off the streets and not do drugs, then I'm supposed to be a mentor. Because each season you have to identify what's the potential for the team and help them reach that. And I love that answer for coaching. I think that answer also applies for business. It's like, identify what is the goal and what is the potential of this organization and help them to reach it the best I can. If I do that enough times, I should be able to, you know, be compensated fairly. I should be able to get referrals and a long lasting business.
It'll work. It really will. And I see it happen for people. It's just sometimes it's hard to play a longer game because in the midst of it, you're just thinking, we're playing this game of compare and compete. You think, I need to be where that guy is, or I need to have what that person has. And it's like, well, keep playing the game. Keep playing the game. So.
Yeah. I recently got advice from a business coach, and I was trying to reconcile an accounting and finance problem, just overanalyzing the numbers and the math of pricing and this and what, funding and blah, blah, blah for a client. And he goes, hey, look, I think you're misconstruing the problem you're facing. You think it's a finance and accounting problem. He goes, but really it's a sales and marketing problem because that's what you're good at solving. So go solve the problems you're good at solving and outsource the problems that you're not good at solving.
Right. Yeah. And I've got people like that. And I'm like, hey, I need you guys to solve this because my spending that time on it to not pay $150 an hour is a terrible use of time. Right. It's like, it's better for me to either serve clients or win clients than it is for me to go figure something. I mean, I need to know it. I need to understand it, but there's certain things I don't need to be digging in the weeds on.
Right. Look, I mean, you have to understand what an offensive lineman's supposed to do.
Yeah.
But are you the right person to go teach people how to shove people around?
That's actually a funny story. 2008, I was a defensive backs coach, and I know DBs. And I coach linebackers, I could coach DBs. I could probably not do a terrible job at the D-line. And I was on a team. We ended up making a state championship game that year, but we didn't have a really good O-line coach at the time. They eventually ended up getting a great O-line coach who's since been there. But the head coach was like, hey, you're a good coach. You need to coach O-line. He was selling it to me. And I was like, I'll try it. A week later, I'm like, I just don't know O-line. And your O-line coach has to be your most technical coach. You need a great O-line coach if you're going to compete. And I remember, one, I was frustrated because I could see where the defensive backs were struggling and how I would have taught them. And then two, I'm doing a poor job over here. I was like the sales guy who got promoted to manager and had no business being that. And the head coach realized it. The offensive coordinator realized it. And they're like, we're going to put you back over here. And that's where I stayed thereafter. I was not an O-line coach.
So we're getting to the part of the show that I like the most. And it's leave a question, ask a question. And what this means is the last guest that I had on the show has a question for you without knowing anything about you. And then you have the opportunity after to ask
Okay.
the next guest whatever you would like.
That's so fun. All right. I got to think about my question, but I'm going to be thinking about that here for a second, but
Yeah, no problem.
yeah, but I guess we can start with their question you
Let's
tell
do
me the
that.
order.
Yep. So the question for you, Adam, is what is one habit or practice that you developed that has really helped you on your journey?
Oh, oh, okay. Okay. This is good. This is very simple and I can answer this. I keep a journal and the journaling approach has changed over the years. I used to spend 10 to 15 minutes a day doing this journaling, but it was a lot of rewiring my thinking. Sometimes I would do it before sales calls. A lot of times I would do it in the morning, but it's what I'm grateful for. And I then do a little visualization and then I write down. Sometimes I write down goals. A lot of times at the end of the day, I'll just write down wins. And I think I got the wins thing from a guy named Dan Go, who's sort of a fitness and health guru who I found on LinkedIn or Twitter and I follow him. But I do something that is designed to keep me focused on what's going well because I'm so focused. I do that and I write down things that I need to think about. So, you're in a business and there are times like you're killing it. And there are times you'll be in a situation and like, it's been slow. And it might be like 3 days that it's been slow. And you're like, are we gonna blow up? And you have to remind yourself, I've handled this problem before, we're gonna be fine. This is a question. All right, this is my question for the next guest. And it's not the best one, but it would be, and I'm gonna frame it with a story. What's been the most impactful thing someone has said to you that's changed the way you view the world or business? Okay. Now I'm gonna tell you mine because if you would act like 3 minutes ago, I was thinking I should ask, my question would be, and I think this is a second pocket question. What's the most impactful book that you've read that's not about business? Right. I told you I was in Italy with my high school coach and my son, and we're talking to a guy who has a glass blowing factory and gallery. It's off Venice. It's on a little island, and we're meeting with this guy. And I'm thinking this is going to be super lame, and it was really amazing. And I didn't realize what you could do with glass. This guy's talking to me and my son, and he said, "This business now brace yourself because we can't even imagine this in the world of private equity and M&A and the United States." This guy says, "This business has been in my family for 800 years. I refuse to be the weak link in the chain." And my mind was just, I've been thinking about that since April because of this recording. We're in August. So that had me thinking, like, what if the goal was just to build something enduring and not exit, but pass it on? Now, different culture, all that. But I've been thinking when I talk to people, I don't always directly ask it. I'm like, is the goal really to sell? Is that really the best thing you could do? So it's a different way of thinking about it. It's got me thinking differently. So that would be my question is,
What business would you build if selling was not an option? Right.
oh man, it'd probably
that
be
question.
It's something in construction, art, or food, right? Things that aren't going anywhere, especially food, right? It's not going anywhere. And I just spent a couple of days with some guys they're consultants to the ag industry, farmers, ranchers, and those businesses are not going anywhere. Like we have to have food.
One of the most popular television shows on the air, writer Taylor Sheridan, a lot of it's based out of Texas, is Yellowstone and all this bits. And that story is about, I don't know, 200 years, 7 generations, something like that.
God,
And in our American mind, that's like as long as it gets because that's when it was settled.
Right.
But to be 800 years where civilization was that old is, I have a family, I come from a line of entrepreneurs and I was named probably the 6th generation named John. My first name is actually John. Oh, wow. And they started a pharmacy in the mid to late 1800s. And this generation, a few years back, they sold because the regulations and the industry around like privately held family business pharmacies made the juice not worth the squeeze. But what you just said made me think about like, was there any way that we could have pivoted? I'm not going to be a pharmacist, but.
Right. And here's the thing. I can't tell those guys that's wrong. And I'm not saying it is. You get to a point, and at the end of the day, the business should serve owners, customers, and employees. But maybe, just maybe, can you get to 100 years, right? And there's something there. And you get to 100 years, you can make a decision. What do you do for the next 100? So that's all I got. Yeah.
Awesome question. Awesome answer, Adam. Last question I have for you is
Sure.
not super deep, but it's important. It's where can people get in touch with you, find
Yeah.
you, learn more?
Well, thank you. I appreciate you asking. I am on LinkedIn. I think my handle is linkedin.com, the Adam P. Boyd. But our website is thenorthwoodgrp.com. The Northwood Group was taken, but the northwoodgrp.com. Folks can reach out to me, Adam at thenorthwoodgrp.com. Feel free to email me. You can jump on our newsletter list, and we drop some things we're thinking about every week. And I recently had this guy became a client, but he said, for months, he said, I've been taking your newsletters and applying that material in our company and building our sales organization just around the newsletter. And I was like, that's great. It's not just marketing material. So I was touched.
Very
But
cool.
yeah, that's where they can reach us. And, our team, we're happy to visit with you. Love to see if we're a fit.
Excellent. Well, thank you for the time, Adam.
Hey, this has been so
It was
much
a
fun.
pleasure.
Next
And
time,
thank
we'll
you.
just record one just on high school wrestling and college football.
I could talk about that for the whole day.
I know.
Thank you, everyone, for listening. I don't run ads in the show. I don't plan to. My only ask is if you find value and you know someone else that would, share it with them. Until next
That's
time,
great.
be well.